Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we are going to be talking about the vast majority of crypto and finance. And with that being said, I hope that you are all having a beautiful day or a beautiful night wherever you guys are out there in the world. One post I did recently include in a video was this post here from the Kabaisi letter. Now, a lot has changed since this actually got posted, and this is only from February 2nd. So we are talking about a difference of 4 damn days. And we have current situation. Stocks are trading like the Fed already cut rates. Bonds are trading like rate cuts aren't happening. Gold is trading like we are on track for a soft landing. Oil prices are trading like we are entering a recession. Housing markets are trading like nothing is happening. Nothing adds up here. All while, guess what? Tech companies are trading like we are in the biggest bull market in history. The Magnificent Seven have effectively become the stock market as displayed today. What a time to be a trader in the market. Now, what is actually going on here? Well, we are in unprecedented times. China, in fact, just went through a crazy time where they did halt a lot of their major stocks. As we really look at what's going on right now, even in the US, there's turmoil on its way. We've addressed this. Now, everyone is trying to figure out what the hell are we supposed to do, right? I've talked about it in the past. We need to make sure that we are stockpiling physical money, aka gold, silver, diversifying our wealth as well, and also tapping into accumulation of goods that are 100% crucial, meaning food, water. I mean, at the end of the day, things are going to get a lot worse throughout time. And I've talked about this, right? Because what we are witnessing right now is the downfall of fiat currency and the fiat currency system. And they are doing this because they are the ones pulling the strings. And when I say they, I mean the Fed, the Treasury, the big players, central bankers, you name it. Over here we have, from the Kabaisi letter, current state of the market. 60 Minutes is airing a rare interview with Fed Chair Powell tonight at 7 p.m. The interview will ask about the future of interest rates and what the Fed might do next. This comes in the midst of the Fed's biggest interest rate hike campaign in history. The best part, the trailer for the interview concludes with, "You have avoided a recession. Why not cut rates now?" What part of this cycle is this? And again, what's funny about all of this is what we have been addressing about the Fed. What have we been addressing? The fact that they don't know what the hell they are supposed to do. Or are they just putting on this act and playing by the rules that they were given? Over here, we actually have a great segment from this. We have US debt is growing faster than the economy. The US is on an unsustainable fiscal path.
The U.S. is on an unsustainable fiscal path. The U.S. federal government's on an unsustainable fiscal path. And that just means that the debt is growing faster than the economy.
I have the sense this worries you very much.
Over the long run, of course it does. You know, we're borrowing from future generations. It's time for us to get back to putting a priority on fiscal sustainability, and sooner is better than later.
Now, the problem with this is that we actually know that this is not going to happen. In fact, they are going to continue to print us into oblivion, and we know this from 2023, which I will get to here in a second. The big thing, though, that I want to mention is the fact that the Fed is actually trying to implode the banking sector. How do we know this? Well, because there's proof. There's a lot going on behind closed doors that they are actually not telling us. Do you think that they're going to go on mainstream media and tell us everything that we need to know about what's actually happening, and they're going to tell us their plan of action and tell us everything is all good? No. And at the same exact time, look at the data that we are given. CPI data, for an example. Falsified information to make it seem like everything is okay, when we all know that it's not. But talking about unsustainability and sustainability, we have Janet Yellen testified before the Senate Finance Committee that she's not concerned about US debt soaring from 32 trillion to 50 trillion. By the way, we're already at 34 plus trillion. And this was just April of 2023. Kind of crazy. As long as we're on a sustainable fiscal course. That was the quote. Again, debt going from 32 to $50 trillion. I don't think that the word sustainable can even be put in the same sentence as debt going from $32 trillion to $50 trillion. Mind you, over the course of 7 years. Newsflash, we're not on a sustainable course. Check it out.
When you're taking the debt from $32 to $50 trillion, are you concerned who's going to buy that debt? And also, at what rate they'll expect to be compensated for buying riskier and riskier debt? Are you concerned about that?
Well, if the real net interest cost of the debt remains low relative to GDP, and we're on a sustainable fiscal.
Well, we're not on a sustainable path. You're going to drive the debt from somewhere around $32 trillion up to about $50 trillion, correct?
Think about how crazy that is. To even include the word sustainable in the same sentence as $32 to $50 trillion. Also, we have over here, talking about being worried about individuals buying our debt, a record $8.9 trillion of government debt will mature over the next year. Meanwhile, the government deficit in 2024 is projected to be $1.4 trillion. This means that someone will need to buy more than $10 trillion in US government bonds in 2024. Let me ask you this. Who the hell in their right mind is going to be buying more than $10 trillion in US government bonds this year? At the same exact time, mind you, that all nations outside of the US are dropping the US dollar. So if they're dropping the US dollar, why would they want to buy US bonds? That's nearly 1/3 of all outstanding US federal debt right now, all while the Fed is expected to start cutting rates, making buying these bonds less attractive. Who's going to fund all of this debt? One of the biggest issues with a higher for longer environment is US debt. Debt service costs for the US government has more than doubled since the Fed started raising rates. The era of free money is over. And yes, as we really look at what's going on, I mean, hell, even look at the chart here. Guys, you have green, blue, and orange on this chart. You have market interest bearing public debt maturing within 1 year or less, percentage of marketable debt maturing in the next 12 months, and market interest bearing public debt maturing within 1 year or less. And do you see January of 2020 to January of 2024 on this chart? Look at how significant this actually is. We are not in a point of comparing past to present. We're not at a point of comparing unsustainability to sustainability. We're at a point of no return, and we are at a point where we are now looking at what is going to happen next. What is the most probable thing that happens next? Is it things looking all good and everything's all fine? Or is it we are getting into the point where something's about to break, something's about to turn around and go down heavy? And when I say that, I mean the economy. We are about to witness some sort of black swan event. Nobody knows the timeline because it's going to be extremely hard to predict a black swan event. That's why it is a black swan event. But I will say this, over the course of the next 2-3 years, things are about to really start getting rocky in the US and even outside of the US. The Fed's Emergency Bank Term Funding Program, or the BTFP, dropped by $2 billion this week. Like January of 2020, Powell has begun pulling emergency liquidity away from the banks at the worst possible time. And we could actually see 3 charts here. The top one, we could actually see assets of liquidity and credit facilities, loans, other credit extensions, liquidity and credit facilities, loans, bank term funding program, and then also other repurchase agreements. Now, top one is in blue, the middle one is in red, and the bottom one is in green. And we could actually see assets, liquidity, and credit facilities starting to go pretty crazy. And this is the BTFP. And we could actually see money being pulled away from this to nearly $2 billion this week alone. Now, why is the BTFP very significant, and why is liquidity being pulled from it something to also watch for? Well, it is because this is the only thing that has been holding up banks for a very long time. Without it, guess what? Banks are going to start to collapse. But we've been addressing this even with Basel III. Basel III is going to put immense pressure on the banking sector. When they start pulling money from the BTFP, well, now you have a recipe for disaster around banks. And we also have on the second chart there, ICE, Bank of America, U.S. High Yield Index Option Adjusted Spread. And you could see January of 2020, the massive spike to the upside. And you could also see the downtrend that eventually had it broken in January of 2020. You can see where we are at right now with the high in roughly the middle to the end of 2022 into 2023. And then you can see 2024 where we are at right now. So we are most likely going to witness something very similar to 2020 in terms of a major black swan event or something similar to it. We also have at the bottom there, average weekly overtime hours of production and non-supervisory employees. And then we also have unemployment on the in the red on this chart. So again, as we really look at what's about to happen, unemployment rate looks as though it's about to start skyrocketing yet again, while the average weekly overtime hours of production and non-supervisory employees seems to be dropping significantly. So it seems as though we are brewing for a pretty substantial crash. Now, we don't know when this is going to happen, but it seems as though we are brewing for it. Down here, we also have a video that Finance Lot actually posted, and this is breaking. The Federal Reserve will end the BTFP emergency funding for banks on March 11th, 2024, which is also why we are starting to see money being pulled away from it. It's a 2020 repeat all over again, a crash orchestrated by Jerome Powell and the Fed, like typical. Listen closely to what Powell was saying here.
I suppose, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Powell, I'm going to project a picture up here so that the audience can see, but I'm also going to hold it up for you. Is this you, Mr. Powell?
That is.
Where are you?
That's a party after the alfalfa dinner, an after party that I went to.
Where was that party held?
At Jeff Bezos' home.
At Jeff Bezos' home, and when was it taken?
Excuse me?
When was this picture taken?
Saturday night after the alfalfa dinner.
Give or take, you'll stipulate end of January 2020?
Yes.
Recently. Can you imagine how attending a lavish party at Jeff Bezos' $23 million home, along with Jared and Ivanka and the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, might give off the sense to the public that you are not, in fact, immune from external pressures?
I would certainly hope not.
What did you talk about at that party with them?
I didn't talk to any of the people you named.
You didn't talk to anybody?
I didn't talk to any of the people you named.
Oh, can you tell me who you did talk to?
I mainly escorted my son and his brand new wife in there, and I actually introduced them to General Mattis.
Okay, great. I would just suggest that this attendance at this kind of event with these kinds of people is inconsistent with what I would otherwise commend you on for doing a very good job, I think, of reaffirming to the public. This plants in the public's mind, I think, a seed that is counter to what you have been doing.
And remember what I've always said about the Federal Reserve: bought and paid for by the big players. Remember, 2008, well, the poor, they became poorer. Middle class basically wiped out. While those top players, I think that they did pretty well. Bankers got richer. The banks themselves, well, I should say the big banks, they expanded their fortune and their empires. This is why when we look at what the Fed has been doing for a very long time, and when we look at 2020 versus 2024, it seems as though it's mimicking, or I should say mirroring, those events leading up to it. Now, why do I think that this is all by plan, and why do I think that the Fed is trying to implode the system like they did back in 2020? Well, because of all of this, right? We have all of the facts here, but beyond that, why are they trying to do this? Why is the Treasury talking about printing this massive amount of money over the course of the next 7 years? Why are we at this point in time even thinking about sustainable or unsustainability? Why is this all being up in question? Well, it's because of this. We're getting to the point now where the interest expense on the debt is so high that it's going to eat up our ability to basically service the next generation. I'm not even sure about the current one. We are in deep trouble. By 2027, the interest expense alone on the debt eats all healthcare spending. By 2047, it eats all discretionary spending. And by the way, right, you might be questioning, why would they want something like this? Well, it's because we're getting closer to the Great Reset. I've talked about this in the past as well. A lot of people still think that this is some conspiracy theory or it's some made up facade. But the thing is the Great Reset is real. The elites have been talking about it for a very long time. Go to Davos, right? Every single year at Davos, they still talk about the Great Reset. They still talk about the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is going to revamp everything. But how do we get there? Well, they need to collapse the old system. They need the old system evaporated, if you will, into this new system that they want to usher in. That is the Great Reset. And this is happening at a time where most people are distracted. They're not paying attention. They're going to get completely wiped out. And the only people that are going to make out good are the ones that are ditching fiat currency. There was a great post by James Lavish, and I'm going to save you guys the trouble because this is back in 2022. This was a very, very long breakdown of everything happening around the debt spiral. Because again, debt at this point, I mean, are we even trying to keep track of it in a sustainable way? No. But at the end of this, we got a discussion about Bitcoin. How can you protect yourselves? Now, I'm not a big proponent of, Bitcoin. I don't care about Bitcoin. I've talked about it in the past. We have, though each investor requires personal advisor-specific advice, you've heard me say it before, and I will reiterate it. I think it's prudent to have some percentage of investments allocated to hard assets, gold, silver, and at least a small amount of Bitcoin. Me personally, I think gold and silver are great. Outside of that, I think that there's cryptocurrencies out there that are very, very good, that are positioned at the forefront of this major change. I've talked about it in the past. And we have, as we continue to manipulate the money and kick the debt can down the road, there's simply no way out of the sovereigns. Whether it's in 10 years or 50, every single fiat-based sovereign currency will eventually collapse under the weight of their own debts. When this happens, those who own hard money like gold, silver, and Bitcoin, we'll just say any cryptocurrency that is legit and actually provides some sort of value and utility, will have protection versus their own currency hyperinflating and being reset. Now, this is already happening, right? We're kind of gearing up for hyperinflation to happen in the US. A lot of nations outside of the US are ditching the US dollar. Some of you have seen this thread before, but if you haven't, the scenario is all laid out for you. And this is actually a great one as well. But we have what we have learned that is most important for each of us to understand after the last 2 years is that it is absolutely inevitable. Fiat is backed by nothing. Our global financial system is built on debt and borrowing. Eventually, these debts will grow too big, even for the USA. The chickens will someday have to roost. And again, what's funny about all of this is that the debt is already there. It's far too big. And I really do think that most people are not looking at this in a legitimate way. I don't think that there's enough eyes on this. I don't think that there's a spotlight being put on this. The current system that we are in right now, it's coming to an end. They're trying to collapse it in front of our eyes just to usher in the Great Reset. And I've talked about this in the past. You could call me a conspiracy theory or a theorist, and you could say that this is a conspiracy theory and that I'm wearing a tinfoil hat. But at the end of the day, all signs are pointing to a new financial system on its way. Every single central banker is out there stockpiling gold. And they're all talking about DLT and blockchain-based technology. So all of this, when we really look at what the Federal Reserve is trying to do, they're trying to cause another 2020-like event yet again, they're pulling money from the major banks in terms of bank term funding programs, which this is all liquidity. This is telling me that they're trying to implode the system. And I would not be surprised if we started to see major banks going belly up this year as well. We already saw one banking stock go belly up this year and actually get halted, which was crazy. But guess what? It was expected. Because I even said back in 2023, and I will continue to reiterate this, we are not out of the woods on the banking crisis. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because of more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. Also, if you guys do want to go check out NordVPN, I am an affiliate. I do get paid for anybody that does utilize my link, but my link is also providing you guys with 64 up to 72% off right now, plus 4 free months. You cannot beat this at all. It does provide a ton of extra layers of security, including a ton of insurance, up to $1 million in coverage, and also up to $100,000 in coverage, depending on what you are looking at in terms of identity theft and even cyber extortion. So if you guys do want to go check out NordVPN, you guys are more than welcome to. There's going to be a link down in the description below, as well as in the comments below. And with that being said, guys, thanks for watching. This has been Nick. Peace out.